you couldn't tell by the title, I am basically going to be going over just about everything in Muck and then how to speedrun the game. So if you do know how the game works, sorry, you might learn a thing or two, but probably not that much. So, to start off from the very, very basics, Muck is a multiplayer single-player game. There's a lot of things to do in it, despite speedrunning only doing like one of them. I'm going to be going over the basics. 14 sections of this stuff and 9 pages on a Google Doc, so let's get started. Start off, materials. Obviously, there's quite a few materials in the game. 5 types of wood, birch, fir, oak, and dark oak. 9 types of minerals, rocks, coal, flint somewhere, iron, gold, mithril, adamantite, obamium, chunkium, and rubies. There's quite a few food items, although I don't know all of them, so I'm not going to list them. And obviously just a bunch of others from enemies, villagers, villages, stuff like that. We'll get into it later. Very basic. So to start off, you're going to have a tutorial. And the game's going to tell you to pick up a rock. Use that rock. Go hit a tree to gather materials. And it's pretty basic progression from there. It's mine materials, get wooden tools, mine materials, get iron tools, mine materials, get mithril tools, mine materials, get adamantite tools, mine obamium, get obamium gear. You'll probably be able to get through half of it if you don't know how the game works. Now, for reasons I'll discuss later, that way of getting materials is the #1 worst way in speedrunning to try and get them. Enemies. So, obviously there's not that many enemies. There's like goblins, wyverns, rock people, Daves. I'm going to be talking about bosses right now. So, obviously there's Gronk, Big Chunk, Chief, Guardian, and of course the final boss, Bob. Bosses are definitely have some skill involved, but farther you go, the more that luck can be involved too, through items and such. Weapons, so just like weapons, there's not a huge amount of variety. You'll have a bunch of different types of swords that just increase in damage and attack speed. Same goes for axes and pickaxes, determining whether just like what material you use, wood, iron, mithril, gold, all the way up to obamium. But the real good thing is boss weapons, say Chief Spear, Night Blade, Wyvern Blade, Big Chunk's Hammer, or I can't remember the exact name. They can give a huge edge up, especially in speedrunning. Each of these, like, OP weapons have different things about it that, like, different attributes. For example, Chief Spear, which isn't what I'm going to be going over right now because it's the one that I know for sure, comparatively, has the highest damage, the longest range, but it has the lowest attack speed of those weapons. Although those are not the only weapons in the game, of course. There are bows, but for the purposes of this stream / this video, I will not be going over them because they are useless in speedrunning, because you can basically only do reliable damage or good damage whenever Bob perches. Armor. You can get armor in 2 ways, I'd say. #1, obviously, is just getting armor itself. Iron armor, all those materials of armor, chunkium and wolf. Specifically, chunkium and wolf both come with their own set buffs. Chunkium armor gives an attack range increase and wolf armor gives a speed increase. Now, I'd say a speed increase, but in a good run, you will most likely never see a wolf. It's not exactly the best use of your time to try and get that armor. Food is a huge portion of speedrunning, although not 100% necessary. So you'll see me running around here. You'll see that I have the green bar, the yellow bar, and the purple bar. So the green bar is obviously my health. The purple bar is obviously my stamina that runs out whenever I jump or sprint or swim in water. And then my yellow bar, which is my hunger, depletes much slower than my stamina, but it will deplete at the same time, and once that runs out, I can no longer regain stamina. But basically, foods, depending on what food type you get, will either increase your health, stamina, or hunger, or all three. Stamina and hunger, honestly, being the most important for bee hopping, which I will get into later. So villages are arguably the most they're run breakers, run makers. I'll put it that way, because they will allow you to get your early game good weapon that you will use throughout the entirety of the run, mainly consisting of the adamantite sword. So villagers have people that run around and people that don't run around. What you need to be looking out for with people that don't run around, see people that have a pickaxe, an axe, not really a bow, as that's pretty much only for extremely niche situations where you need flax seeds. The ones with a piece of meat on their head, and the ones that have white pants on, those are the ones you can trade with gold coins. I haven't talked about gold coins either. So there are 3 ways to get them. Number 1, from chests. For example, the chests in the villages. Keep in mind, although there are chests in villages, do not loot every single one. There's one on top of a rock called a chief's chest, and if you open that, it will aggro every single villager, and then you won't be able to trade with them. Another way is just through killing enemies / bosses, for obvious reasons. Bosses will give more gold coins than, say, a goblin or a villager. And the third way, which is basically never used, you can turn 1 gold bar into 5 gold coins and an anvil. And also keep in mind, again, with villagers, if you hit them, they will get aggroed. Try and think of them as zombified piglins, which actually is interesting because they're basically exactly like zombified piglins, in such that if you one-shot them, they will not get aggro. And just a quick thing, in those chests there should be certain items you're looking for, and everything else you can pretty much just ignore. So iron, wood, rocks, obviously only 1 wooden axe, weird soup, a single piece of armor. If there's multiple, feel free to put it on. Wheat, 10 flint if you don't find a fletching table, and bread if you don't have a supply of food yet. You can take apples if you want from these things. I would say you don't really need to. The only reason I'm taking apples on screen right now is because I was about to run out of hunger. Alright, number 7, chests and items. You'll see these chests around. For example, this tan looking chest, 25 gold. There's that blue chest up there that will be 80 gold. Black chests, like there was the one I opened earlier, that one is free. And then there are yellow chests, which are 200 gold. And just a quick thing, this is the chief's chest you do not want to open. Also, another quirk about the game, if you break the chest, you will still get the contents, and the villagers will not be aggroed. So I do not believe there is a different item pool between the black and tan chests, but the basics of them are that you can get any item out of them, mostly common, sometimes rares, rarely legendaries. In these blue chests, you will get a rare or a legendary, most likely a rare. And in the yellow chests that cost 200 gold, you will always get a legendary. You do not want to be buying these before you have gotten all the materials for the boat. Items. I have one item right now from a chest, although that is not the only way to get them. There are 3 ways. The first that I showed, obviously opening a chest, and then the loot tables just determine what tier you're gonna get. The second is bosses, like this guy right here. This statue right here is a boss. If I defeated him, he would drop a rare or a legendary. And the last one, there are little rectangular prism here, like this. Basically another test of combat that will spawn 3 buff enemies. And if you defeat them, there will be an item that spawns. There is not really any item that you don't want to take, except for 2. For speedrunning in particular, you most likely do not want to be taking a jetpack, and you definitely do not want to be taking a bulldozer. A jetpack makes it much more difficult to do precise jumps, and which makes it more difficult to b-hop and get movement, or faster movement, let's say. Bulldozer is an item that hits your enemies away from you. Now, in a speedrun, you want the enemies to be as close to you as possible for the largest amount of time, so that way you can get the most amount of hits in. The next thing, now that I've gone over most of the basics, I'm going to do a complete run breakdown. Basically, your first few runs will probably go something like this. You spawn in, of course, you get some materials, you go to the boat, you defeat the guardians, finish the boat, defeat Bob. Obviously not a lot, or it doesn't sound like a lot. However, it is much more than it sounds, and if you have played the game for not even that long, you would definitely know that. Start off, if you don't know about the boat is what brings you to the end of the game. It is what spawns Bob. Any single one of these green chests that you find, you open it, it will have a boat map in it. Keep in mind that it will stay there unless you have seen the boat. So even when I go to this chest, it still has it. You have to place the boat map in your inventory. If you shift click it in, it will not register. I have made that mistake many times. And when you take the map, there will be this icon that shows up, a yellow exclamation point with a question mark right on top, and it will show up on your map as well. This will be the position of the boat, of course. As I make my way over there, I'm going to explain more about the boat. So the boat, when you get to it, is in a broken state, and it is your job to repair it to beat the game. It is what makes a speedrun difficult. I'm going to go over exactly how many materials you will need in single player to be able to do this, because the materials change based on how many people are in your lobby. I am not sure if it changes between, let's say, time or difficulty. But it needs 110 wood, 15 fir, 15 oak, 28 dark oak, 60 rocks, 32 iron, 9 gold, 5 adamantite, 5 obamium, 11 rubies, 10 meat, 60 wheat, 13 flax seeds, 1 ancient core, and 5 gems. That is the exact amount of everything. Now, if you didn't think the boat was a lot, that's the best way to get your mind changed. Now, once you put all those materials into the boat, there will be a prompt on the wheel to leave Muck, and once that happens, water will rise, and about 20 to 30 seconds later, Bob will spawn, and a fight will ensue. So now that I am at the ship, this is perfect timing, because now I can explain about guardians. So you probably are familiar with just about every material in there, maybe not flax seeds, that's fine. It's just these blue flax plants on the ground that you use with a fletching table to get flax seeds. In this chest here, every boat is going to have this chest in the same place. You're going to see a gym map. Might wonder what that is. You press M, you see 5 gyms on the map. Those are the locations of the 5 guardian statues that you need to activate, and then subsequently Defeat these guardians to acquire the gem. This is another make or break of a run, based on the spread of these fine gentlemen. You can decide then whether you want to keep continuing with the run or not. It comes with time. I probably wouldn't do this one. And another thing you might not have seen is the ancient core, which is just a drop from any boss. And I mean any boss, except Bob, because Bob doesn't drop anything. Okay, so once you have done that, you repaired the ship, you summon Bob, you defeat him. Congratulations, you beat the game. Now it's time to get into more of the bulk of what you should know about the game to speedrun. So basically, right now is the moment if you had muted me or looked away. It's too bad, I guess. But right now is when I'm going to get into the specifics of what you need to know to run the game. To start off, I'm going to do movement. So I am going to go into a new lobby here on easy. Of like CSGO bee hopping. I think that is the best way to understand how to do this. So the basics of it are you run with shift, jump with space, obviously. What you do is you do a running jump, you hold jump, let go of sprint, you look at a 45-degree angle, and then you hold the two directions you're going. So for example, I'm going this way, so I'm holding W and D. If I go this way, I'm holding W and A. I do one jump, flick my mouse, obviously, press the corresponding keys to what direction I am looking. Keep in mind that once you are at a small fraction of stamina, although it looks like you might be able to jump and conserve momentum, you will jump and then immediately stop. I don't know why that happens. I wish it didn't. It's just a kink in the running that you're gonna have to get used to. Just like bee hopping itself, it's definitely something you probably need to practice on. And another thing with the bee hop, so I'm on a cliff right now. There's that little geometry like right there that's at a corner, right? If I do this and jump off of that, you'll see I get much more momentum rather than just jumping normally and doing that. Keep that in mind. It is one of the best ways to move around, although it is not the best. Best way to move around is directly in this direction. It is water. So water is the fastest way to move around, and it can get you incredibly high speeds by itself, or conserving the momentum after once you get back onto land. So I'll give you an example. So I am just going to hold W in this water. I'm not going to shift. I'm not going to sprint or jump. And look how fast I go. So now I'm going to hold jump here. You'll see I conserve the momentum from that. That is one of the essentials that you need to know, although it's best to get bee hopping down first. The actual run, if you want to speedrun, the first thing you need to do, go to speedrun.com and download the AntiCheat. Because if you do not do that, your run will not be verifiable, which is what happened when I submitted my first run. So if you do, make sure you do that. Another thing is to use live split. You can obviously time it by yourself afterwards, but I find live split to be the best way to do it. And there's a setting in live split that you can show what game you're playing and have the splits go automatically. And there is one for Muck. So basically, once you start up the game, the timer will start up automatically. And if you're doing this category, make sure you turn off stopping the timer at a boss, because otherwise the first time you defeat a guardian or a big chunk, Gronk, Chief, it will just stop the timer. Last thing, which is I hope will be pretty obvious, do the game on easy difficulty, because it is going to be the easiest, it is going to be the fastest. If you want to try and get the world record on gamer difficulty, be my guest. Honestly, I want to see that more than an easy new world record. So some things to note in your first village. Let's say you're just done getting everything from the village. You just got all the items you needed. Feel free to go and take from that chest regardless. Once you run far enough away, the villagers will despawn, as I believe they are tied to that location. So once that's basically deloaded, they are deloaded. Before you get a sizable portion of food, take these Sugon shrooms or Sugon shrooms, specifically these, or the weird shrooms, the ones with like 4 different colors on them. When you eat these, they will increase your stamina and you will be able to make your way much faster to that first village or that next guardian. Another thing, always grab flax when you see it. Keep in mind you will need to go up to 13. Another thing, always grab wheat. Keep in mind you need to get to 60. Hopefully you get the majority of your wheat from villages, although if you don't, do not worry. Wheat is usually a pretty easy resource to find. You might have to go out of your way to get it, but it is much more worthwhile to do that than to end a run that could have potentially been a PB or world record just because you decided to not turn for a second. Next thing I'm going to be going to is actually running the game. Before I go into that, let me just note, if the conditions are not met in that portion, if I say something and you don't see that happening in your run, most likely solution is to reset and go to a different world. Last thing that I'm going to say before I get into that, make sure to always take from the free black chests, like I did. Like I did to get the spoo bean. Obviously, there is a chance you do not get a white, you get a good rare. Maybe you get a good white, say orange juice, or you get even a legendary. Actually running the game, not just a basic person's understanding of how it works. We are going to be actually getting into how I would be playing the game, or how a separate runner would most likely be playing the game. Keep in mind everything I say here in this on this stream / in this video is solely my opinion. You can do whatever you want. If you can do something else that will allow you to get world record, congratulations, I am very happy for you. Please tell me how you did it. Basically, you're going to be looking for a village. Villages can be somewhat easy to spot. You can see one right here, barely. You see that gray smoke. You are going to be seeing campfires. Keep in mind, villages have these houses. Although, just because you see a house does not mean you have found a village. There are some things that do indicate a village, though, that are not houses or campfires. For example, villagers, obviously. These log piles, this chest, these rock piles, these logs, barrels, and this little hut. If you ever see this little hut, think to yourself, oh, that's probably just a single thing. It's not a village. It's a village. Now, in these villages, like I said before, you're going to be looking for materials in them. Pretty much just gold coins, but like for now, but feel free to take any of the materials they have, but stay away from their chief's chest. You're going to want to be looking for a smith or a wild card, whichever is selling a adamantite sword. This adamantite sword will most likely be what you are using in your run to kill or defeat literally everything. You're going to be defeating enemies, maybe villagers, the guardians, etc. Now, here's a perfect example. I didn't find that. I didn't find gold. I didn't find someone with an adamantite sword. What am I going to do? I'm going to reset? No, not yet. I'm going to look in here. Because there is a 1% chance that there is a chief's spear in there. I didn't say exactly what it was earlier, but it is a chief's spear, which is arguably the best weapon in the game. Another thing, don't be discouraged just because you haven't found a village. If you see a cave and no village in sight, feel free to go for that cave. You could find a night blade in there, which is actually how set seed is done. Set seed, you basically just go to a cave, get the knight's blade, and continue from there. Saves a lot of gold, plus you get a much better weapon than an adamantite sword would be. Okay, and keep in mind, it's not only the chests you can get gold from, but you can find houses that have an anvil that could have gold ingots in them, that you could then make those gold ingots into gold coins. You could theoretically sell stuff, although that is the most unlikely scenario, but I think I have done it once. And there are barrels. So these barrels, you're going to want to use a wooden axe for. It's the only reason I say that you should get one in your runs, is so that way at the beginning you can mine those if you do not have a steady supply of gold coins. These barrels can also drop wheat, bread, rocks, and wood, all of which are useful in getting a good run. but mostly in those chests you're going to be looking for gold coins because there's no reason you should be breaking them otherwise. So next, well, actually one more thing. If you have, say, a wooden pickaxe or better, but you don't have enough gold, and you see a big chunk nearby, you can summon him and fight because pickaxes will always crit against big chunks and those little stony boys. I don't know what their names are. With whatever weapon you have obtained, most likely the adamantite sword, like I said. Imagine I have one right now. I have a spear tip. You're going to make your way over here. Not specifically here, but just to the boat on your map. And once you get here, you can go ahead and, well, take the map. And let's say I had a few gems. Let's say the Sugon Shroom is actually the purple gem. I would put it in here to save inventory space. And now on to the next portion. That's pretty much it. And again, I'm just gonna take a quick look. Guardian placement doesn't seem too bad. If I had food, I would be fine with this placement. You're gonna want to obviously defeat the Guardians. I will get in on how to defeat specific bosses later, but basically you defeat them, get the gems, hopefully extra drops. Keep in mind, all bosses can drop extra things. Chunkium, for example, or Big Chunk, for example, can drop Chunkium. The Guardians can drop ruby, zobamium, and maybe dark oak. Gronk and the chief can drop various types of wood, plus their weapons, and the list probably goes on. So now that you have defeated the Guardians, you've gotten some, much more gold, you're going to want to go to a new village or a previous village and spend all that gold to get everything you need for the ship. And there are some items you will need to buy extra of. Let's start with wood. You're going to want to, as much as I want to say that, like, yeah, you only need 110 wood, buy 3 stacks of wood and buy 2 stacks of rocks. And you want that wood and that stone. Feel free to get, if you need to smelt iron or gold, get extra wood. That's all I'm saying. In a good run, you will not need to smelt anything besides adamantite and obamium. In that case, you just use your rocks to make 4 furnaces, and then you use your excess wood to smelt those items. And then while those items are smelting, you can craft ropes and repair the ship as needed, and then hopefully by the time you are done repairing the ship, everything has been smelted, and you can just go ahead and finish it up with those last few materials. Before the fight starts, and by before the fight starts, I mean after you press on the wheel to leave Muck, but before Bob spawns, if you have excess gold, you are going to want to jump off the boat and swim through the water to get some chests that you had missed because you didn't want to use gold, or you just didn't have time for it. These chests can be game changers because you could get legendaries, anything from these. It's all up to chance on them. And then when Bob spawns, you defeat him. But keep in mind that he's only able to be hit reliably when he is perching on the side of the boat. Okay, now for a little extras on the bosses. I will do a demonstration because I'm pretty much only going to be talking about 3 bosses. I'm going to be talking about the Guardian, the Big Chunk, and Bob. I will not be able to do a demonstration for Bob right now because I'm not going up against him right now. So here's the Guardian. He has 3 attacks. He has a laser, which is this. For this attack, you're just going to want to sit right under him. Obviously, because I've been in this world for 3 days, he's going to do more damage. There is the jump attack, as I call it, or the slam. Keep in mind, he predicts your movement. So immediately when he hits the ground, if you just back up, the area of effect will always be behind you. Then he has a 3rd one, which he'll probably kill me with. It is just 2 slaps. Okay, I'm just dead. If you have any piece of armor, or say Danny's milk, that laser will do 0 damage if you are under it on the first and maybe second day. But really, what you need to know is how to dodge his jump, slam, slash slam attack. So basically, like I said before, when he hits the ground, do a quick back up or any direction that's not where you want to go. So let's say he slams, I do this, I just do a quick back, and then I go forward and I start slamming him. Next boss, Big Chunk. He's not the hardest, but there are some things you need to know about him. First off, I will reiterate this. He always takes crits from pickaxes, so feel free, if you have juice, use that to your advantage. Another thing about him, just always sit underneath him. If he jumps and you feel like you won't be able to survive it, run away and make sure you jump when he slams down. It is going to ensure that he deals the least amount of damage to you. Also, when you are below him, you will want to jump up, as hitting him in the crotch and his legs will do the max amount of hits towards him. And if you have any extra jumps, you could also use those to be able to keep that distance or avoid his slam attack. Lastly, Bob, obviously a huge dragon. He has one of two things he can do while he's flying around in the air, saying F you to your run because he doesn't perch for 2 minutes. The first thing he can do, which is the most common, is he will shoot fireballs. He can shoot anywhere from like 1 to 5 fireballs. I believe it is mainly dependent on how much health he has. The lower the health, the more fireballs he shoots in each burst. Keep in mind that the instant he shoots these fireballs, it follows the same principles as the Guardian Slam, as it will track you. So he shoots, I do a run, and then I quickly run back. And so you should pretty much never get hit by that unless you do it intentionally. And there is a case in which you get hit by his fireball intentionally, and it is a good thing that saves time. I might get into that later. I'll get into it actually pretty soon. And the second thing he will do is perch. You will notice he kind of jerks himself a little in a direction. He will always go to the same side of the boat, and then he will do 2 slams. And then he will go into a different attacking phase where he can do like raining down fireballs, a flamethrower, I believe more slaps, and he can drag himself across the boat. The best way to avoid his damage is to just be away from him. The best way in the speedrun to not take damage and do damage is to literally just sit right up against him like you would with a Guardian when he's doing his laser. You basically will not get hit by any attack, and if you have Crimson Dagger, which is a rare item that heals you on hit, then you basically have nothing to worry about. Keep in mind that he will go back to his flying phase when about 1/3 of his health is depleted, and he won't do that instantly. He will do it after an attack. So if you can, try to maximize the damage output before he flies away. That means maybe not hitting him before an attack, so be it. Last thing about Bob. I'm not exactly sure about the specifics about it, but from what I have seen, especially in my set seed runs, getting crits, doing the jump downs from the angelic wings, which is basically a Minecraft crit, does not do extra damage. It will always do the same amount of damage. I believe, however, if you get, say, a sniper scope crit, that will do extra damage that will go through his defenses. Now, keeping in mind that these defenses are up, the best course of action is to get, say, orange juice, like this. There are 2 other items, technically 3. So there's juice, which increases your attack speed on a crit, and that goes with horseshoe, because horseshoe increases your crit chance. And the last one, which is arguably the most important, but the hardest to get, is adrenaline, and that is because it is a legendary. It is a legendary that incredibly increases your attack speed once you fall below 30% health. This is that case I was talking about a minute ago. This is the case in which you would intentionally want to take damage against Bob, because when you take that damage, you get that fast attack speed, you destroy him much faster than you would otherwise. This is a big component in set seed, in world record for set seed, because they had adrenaline, not solely because obviously they're skilled in their own right, but it can't be denied that it was a major contributing factor. And keep in mind, through everything I said, it is all opinion based. Don't have to take any of it as fact. I could very well be wrong about any of these things. And honestly, I just have 2 more things to go over. 2 quick things. So for other bosses, the Chief and Gronk, learn them as you go. If you aren't confident in your ability against fighting them, but in most runs you will be fighting big chunks instead of those 2 to get say iron and rocks and gold, obviously. But like I said, if you want to get practice on them, I recommend doing set seed, either watching maybe one of my VODs, the world record by Eclipse Flames. He does a great job at showcasing on what you should be doing against Gronk and Chief, because you face both of them in that run. The last thing, this is a dire scenario thing. Bosses and enemies will destroy terrain for you. Now, this can be beneficial. Say you don't have an axe and you need to destroy a birch tree, and that's the birch tree destroyed. Keep in mind, I also took a lot of damage from that. There's many mobs following me. I can't even defeat this big chunk, so I'm pretty much at a standstill here where I need to find a village. You can destroy the structures like barrels. Sometimes I do use the Guardian Slam attack to destroy barrels in villages. I do that on occasion. Never have I done a run where it's actually useful. I mean, don't get me wrong, it has been useful. But I have never completed a run while doing that. Use it as a last resort only. I mean that in the strongest way possible. After all of that, you should know how to speedrun this game. Or at least have an understanding. With that understanding, I'm sure with enough practice, you can do exactly what you want to do, whether that just be, speedrunning the game, showing other people that you're better than them, etc.